movies pride themselves of being the cause of a lot of people's nightmares. Just the thought of a mysterious figure like Michael Myers looking at you from outside or Freddy Krueger appearing in your dreams is terrifying to most. That's because horror's biggest strength is not just the terror itself, but the idea of a terrorizing situation. That's why horror movies that rely on jump scares end up fading over time, while those who use their atmosphere and trick the audience's imagination into picturing terrifying scenarios are talked about for years after the release. While a movie like The Shining has the terrifying imageries a good horror movie requires without relying on jump scares and loud sounds, there is a horror movie that has achieved scares in the most effective way and traumatized an entire country while barely having any scary scene in it. And that movie is the 1998 movie Ringu. Ringu tells the story of journalist and single mother Reiko Asakawa investigating the urban legend of a cursed video, one which kills you 7 days after you initially watch it. Reiko discovers that her niece Tomoko, who had recently and very suddenly died, spent the night not long before her death in a cabin with 3 of her friends where they supposedly found an unmarked tape. Reiko investigates and discovers the 3 friends had also died the same night as Tomoko, 1 week after staying at the cabin. Reiko's journalistic curiosity takes over, and soon she gets hold of the infamous tape. After viewing the tape, her casual skepticism turns to genuine concern as something about the video is evidently unnerving. The video runs for less than a minute and shows very grainy black and white images which include jumbled newsprints and a close-up of someone's eye. After the tape finishes, the phone immediately rings and there is no one speaking on the line, just weird metallic noises. Reiko realizes that this may be quite a serious situation and calls her ex-husband Ryuji, who is father to her child Yoichi, for help. He is skeptical of the tape and the phone doesn't ring when he finishes watching it. However, Reiko's son Yoichi manages to get a hold of the tape and watches it as well. Reiko expresses genuine worry for her son and Ryuji agrees to go with her to Oshima, the birthplace of the woman seen on the video. There, they discover the last of her relatives and the tragic story that lies behind the curse is revealed. The premise of Ringu is absolutely perfect for cheap scares and loud sounds and creepy imageries every 5 minutes, given it is pretty much a ghost story. However, the filmmakers decided to go in a different and unique direction. The effectiveness of Ringu comes from its scary scenes or lack thereof. The author of the curse is the ghost of a girl named Sadako. However, we only truly see the ghost of Sadako once, towards the end when she emerges out of the TV. That is also the first time we see how the curse is executed and why the victims' faces look the way they do when they are found. It is because of Sadako's terrifying angry eye. It is one of the scariest images ever put on film, and yet it is only one scene and the shot only lasts for a few seconds. Before that legendary scene, Sadako only appears in the background and in the shadows and only briefly. Director Hideo Nakata's goal with this movie was clearly to build up not only to that one effective scene, but to make Sadako into a mythical legend. He did not want the movie to just tell us how mysterious and terrifying that ghost was, but to make us feel that way through the movie's actual structure. At first, we see the face of our first victim before death. Then we see the first of her victim after death. Then we see her other victims' faces, but all of that without ever seeing how these victims were killed and why their faces looked like that. Then in the third act, when Sadako crawls out of the TV, it is as if she was crawling towards the audience. Her angry look is staring straight at the camera, as if she was not only angry at the character in the movie, but at the audience itself. As if the audience was part of the curse and was facing the wrath of Sadako. That is why her kill in this scene is not shown. We never see the body of her victim in this scene because that is irrelevant. That is not the purpose of that scene. The sole purpose of that payoff was to traumatize the viewer, and showing the body of the actual victim blurs the illusion, so the filmmakers decided to cut away and let the viewers associate those victims seen early in the movie with how terrified a latest victim's face might look like, and at the same time imagine themselves in the same scenario. I know it may seem far-fetched to think about a scene in the movie that way, but there is a reason a movie with no jump scares, no scary monsters, no loud sounds, and only one ghost scene is still to this day the highest grossing horror movie in Japan. It is because through the pessimistic environment and genuinely creepy atmosphere Nakata created for this movie, the audience always felt immersed in this world, always had the feeling that something was wrong until it paid off big time in the final act. That is how you create an iconic ghost figure that will traumatize an entire nation for decades. Ringu's origin can be traced back to a novel of the same name. The book was written by Koji Suzuki in 1991. The book was followed by multiple sequels like Spiral in 1995, Loop in 1998, The Birthday in 1999, and S in 2012. The original book's sequel, Spiral, actually has a movie adaptation that was released at the same time as Ringu, although it was not as successful, so it is never really acknowledged. The fascinating aspect of Ringu is its real-life angle that goes beyond fiction and that contributes to its greatness. Around 1910, during a period of interest in spiritualism in Japan, Tomokishi Fukurai, an assistant professor of psychology at Tokyo University, began pursuing parapsychology experiments using Shizuku Mifune, Ikuko Nagao, and others as subjects. Fukurai published results of experiments with Nagao that alleged she was capable of telepathically imprinting images on photo plates, which he called Nensha. When journalists found irregularities, Nagao's credibility was questioned, and there was speculations that her later illness and death was caused by distress over criticism, which is very similar with the origins of Sadako's mother, Shizuko Yamamura, who accurately predicted the eruption of a volcano and became something of a media celebrity, which in turn attracted the attention of a Tokyo professor, Dr. Ikuma, who presents Shizuku Yamamura in front of a group of journalists with the intention of proving the validity of his research into psychic phenomena. The presentation does not go as planned, and Shizuku Yamamura is labeled a fraud. Folklore has long been a massive part of Japan's culture, and for them it goes hand in hand with the supernatural and religion. Shinto, for example, is a religion wholly accepting of what Westerners would consider supernatural. According to Shinto, millions of objects within nature are inhabited by spirits who, depending on circumstances, can be either friendly or aggressive. However, there are also concrete examples of spirits and the afterlife being commonplace in everyday life. A lot of Japanese homes contain a Buddhist household altar where spirits of the deceased are supposed to reside. Regular offerings are made to these shrines. Through this acceptance of spirits as a genuine part of life, Eastern culture is filled with much more ghost stories than the West. And even though Sadako may seem like an original idea, it is actually a very common ghost in Japan horror tales. She is an Onryu, a vengeful spirit often represented in a white burial kimono, white and indigo face paint, and having unkempt long dark hair. Onryo are usually women and commonly returning from the dead to exact revenge on those that have wronged them in life. You have probably heard of Ringu, since it has been a lot more exposed in the last few years. However, it took time for it to find an audience outside of Japan due to a lack of exposure. It got its first DVD release in 2001 to accompany the release of the American remake The Ring, directed by Gore Verbinski and starring Naomi Watts. These days, horror movies focus less on building suspense and intrigue and more on creating loud and forgettable moments. That's why remembering a movie like Ringu is so important right now. A movie that was so traumatizing that during its VHS release in the UK in 2001, a disclaimer was put on the back of the box stating that the distributor was not responsible for any injuries or fatalities that may occur during or after the viewing of the tape. What makes Ringu so impactful is not the moment, because at the moment of watching it, you probably won't realize that you have been scarred for life, as that realization will only kick in later when you start envisioning the creepiness of Sadako in your dreams, when you are alone in the dark, or whenever you are about to watch TV alone in your living room. Think about that.